Chad, it's Ross. We've only ever spoken, I think, once or twice. And this is an honest question. Is it Chad Johnson right now or Chad Ochocinco?
You know what? It's whatever you want to say. It doesn't matter what it says on paper. When you see me, however you feel the need to address me, that's how you do it.
God, okay, cool. I like that. I like the flexibility there. Well, you're at Ochocinco on Twitter. You have a great new podcast with Jamie Dukes that drops on Wednesday, which is fantastic. I'm curious, now that you've been removed from the league for a couple of years, do you look back on, all the things you did from an entertainment perspective? Are you glad that that's the way you handled yourself, or do you wish you had done it a little bit differently?
I am glad I did it exactly the way I did it. If I had the opportunity to do it again, I'd probably do it the exact same way and add a few things that I wasn't able to do because of I like to call it early departure from my chance of, or actually have an opportunity to play due to my own stupidness. But I wouldn't change a thing. And I think I would regret not doing things my way now that I'm removed from the game, 4 or 5 years removed. If I didn't do it my way, because I would be like, man, I could have done this. I could have done it this way. And the game of football, as we tend to forget at times, is a game of entertainment. It's a game of entertainment, and I did just that. I did it the right way. Also being able to be extremely, extremely productive week in and week out.
Yeah, and Chad, it's interesting. I think I said during the break, I don't remember any guy from the Bengals since Ickey Woods having commercials before you. And I'm sure Dalton has something, or A.J. Green maybe, but I don't really remember guys from the Bengals having any commercials since you. On some level, obviously Carson and the team's success, but on some level, you and the way you performed and the way you entertained really put that franchise back on the map. And I can see why you like the way you behaved. I mean, you benefited significantly off the field, don't you think?
Yeah, somewhat. Some of the things I did were frowned upon. Some weren't. I think if I wasn't as productive as I was, some of the extra shenanigans, some of the things I did off the field, would have been used as a reason as to why, things were the way they were. But being that I was able to produce week in and week out, year after year, and be consistent somewhat, I was able to get away with doing some of the extras.
Hey, we're talking with Chad Johnson, Chad Ochocinco. Check him out on Twitter at Ochocinco here on the Dan Patrick Show, and check out his podcast as well with Jamie Dukes that drops on Wednesday mornings. Chad, we saw DeBrickashaw Ferguson surprisingly retire on Friday. Before that, it was Calvin Johnson. We've got Marshawn Lynch. It seems like a bunch of guys that could still play at a pretty high level are retiring with still having some game left. I would not have been one of those guys. I think I would have played until the wheels came off, but I also didn't make the money that some of these guys made. Do you think that they're doing it more, Chad, because the money's so big now that they've made so much? Or do you think that, the CTE and the head stuff is really a factor in why it at least appears as if more and more guys are stepping away earlier than ever before?
You know what? That's a great question, and I think if you ask each individual that retired, and you just named 3, I think you get 3 different answers if you ask all 3 of them why they decided to left the game. And normally, the answers that they give you on why, the answers to the media or to the public, they're always politically correct. But I mean, I want the real, like the homeboy, me and the homeboy, no cameras, no media talking. That's the answer I would like from those individuals, especially Marshawn Lynch and Calvin Johnson, on why you decide to hang it up. And I think realistically, what it is, I would say injury. I would say the body is beat up. And I think what they're doing is they're letting go of the game before the game lets go of them, if that makes sense.
What would you tell them, Chad, if they asked you? Like and maybe Calvin did, but if they asked you, because I got the sense that when you were done, even just talking to you now, that you wish you could have played a couple more years. What would you have said if Calvin asked you for advice?
you know the game. You understand the politics of the game. It's happened to every great receiver there is. And what you want to do is you want to get all of yours as fast as possible because there's a small window for us or for you in general. And I'm not sure what it would have been, but if you feel the need to walk away and you can't perform at a high level and be the Calvin Johnson that you've been over the years, then I say it's okay. If you can still go and still give it Calvin Johnson week in and week out, then I'd stay. That would be my advice.
Chad, who is your favorite receiver in the league right now? Forget, who the best is, but who's just your favorite and why?
You see, I have a tie. I have a tie when you talk about favorites, and I'm not sure if I'm able to do this. Matter of fact, it might not even be a tie. It might be quadruple. No, I don't want to say quadruple. This is the problem. I love Odell. I love Antonio Brown, and I love A.J. Green. Now you have three different receivers. You have three different receivers that get it done three different types of ways. It depends on what you like. Personally, I like Antonio Bryant on what he can do as far as the receiver, inside, outside, and he's a master route runner and can do it from the outside and inside, and he also adds a special team element to his game as well. I like Odell for the entertainment value, also being able to produce at a high level from the outside or the inside as well. And A.J. Green is just freakish. He's just a freakish athlete. He's a freakish athlete that I enjoy watching each and every Sunday when I have the opportunity to watch the Bengals.
It's interesting. We're wrapping up with Chad Johnson. Check him out on Twitter at Ochocinco. About 3 million of you or more do. He's also got a new podcast with Jamie Dukes that drops every Wednesday. Last time I was filling in, Chad, for Dan, I had Gary Myers on the show, and he's a Hall of Fame voter. And he talked about how they didn't vote for T.O. this year, in part because of the things he did in the locker room and his, I don't want to say off-the-field behavior, but I guess in the locker room behavior and thinking that had an impact on things that happen on the field. And I know T.O. came out recently and said he thinks that the Hall of Fame should be based solely on your statistics. I'm curious as to where you stand on that discussion.
Isn't that what the Hall of Fame is about? Am I correct? The Hall of Fame is about your stats, your accolades, and what you're able to do in between the lines of the game, right?
Well, evidently, according to a lot of the voters, Chad, it's about more than that.
Why is that? Why is that? That has nothing to do. You're telling me you're making the Hall of Fame based on what you do off the field, the way you carry yourself.
I think the thought process. I think the thought process, Chad, or at least this is how it was described to me, is that the things that T.O. did in the locker room negatively impacted his team's chances of winning, and that's what the Hall of Fame is about, how much you contributed to your team being better.
We talk about Terrell Owens, right? The same Terrell Owens. Have you seen his numbers? Have you seen what he does once he touches the field?
Hey, I'm with you, man. He would have gotten in ahead of Marvin Harrison on my vote. There's no question about it.
He would get in ahead of anyone because he impacts the team in a positive way once he touches the field. What happens in the locker room doesn't matter. What happens outside the locker room doesn't matter. He is a difference maker once he touches the field. His impact on the field is magnificent, period. Case closed. His personality, how he acts, how he carries himself, shouldn't have anything to do with getting into the Hall of Fame. This is the thing. This is why I don't really care much for it. I don't really care much for it because it's a group of individuals that are voting you in where we're supposed to play and be proud and need this validation. We're supposed to need this validation. Okay, well, you played well enough, and you acted a certain way, and you conformed to the way we felt you should have played like. So we're going to let you in this group of elite people. That's not what it's about. That's not what it's about. And it's for some reason it's like so. It's so flawed to the point where I don't even care because it's like everybody Everybody needs this validation to say, oh, you're a Hall of Famer, you were great. I was great whether I wear the yellow jacket or not. I was great whether you let me in your little secret society or not. The numbers speak for themselves. I don't need the jacket. I don't need the who's, the ahs. Oh, he was great. No, I was great during my time. The numbers speak for themselves. The film, The Eye in the Sky, doesn't lie. And the same thing goes for T.O. Yes, he had his problems. We all had. We all do have them. But to say, oh, we're not going to vote him in because he did this in the locker room or he had this incident, that has nothing to do with Hall of Fame at all. It has nothing to do with it at all.
Well, I kind of thought you'd feel that way, and my argument is, how do they really know what happened in the locker room? That's been my argument.
You know, everything is controlled by the media. Everything's controlled by the media. The media drives everything.
Yep, no, I'm with you, and I'm in it now. I'm in it now, Chad, and you kind of are as well with the podcast.
Yeah.
Thanks for hopping aboard, man.
Hey, I love you and everybody listening. If you guys need me, just call me.
There he is. Check him out on Twitter. There he's Chad Ochocinco. Good stuff there. I love that he called the Hall of Fame the secret society.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.